Yeah, just a quick review of the book, Rotator Cuff Injury, Rotator Cuff Injury Handbook. Subtitle, Rotator Cuff Symptoms, Repair, Stretches, Exercises, Causes, and more. Rotator cuff bursitis, tendonitis, and tear included. So the book is divided up into 13 chapters. I'll name each one briefly just to give you an idea what's in the book. First one's kind of an introductory chapter. Second one covers anatomy of the shoulder, always a good place to start, so you kind of know how your shoulder's put together. 3 is problems associated with the shoulder joint. Here they talk about things like instability, ligament injuries, those kind of things. 4 is acute management of a musculoskeletal injury. Acute meaning like immediate, like if you suddenly broke your ankle, that's acute. Acutely you broke it, as opposed to like a stress fracture that happens over time. So if you just tore your rotator cuff, what do you do? 5 is general treatment strategies of a chronic musculoskeletal injury. So here again, the last chapter was more on acute, like you suddenly heard it, but this chapter 5 is general treatment strategies if you have a chronic injury, something that's long-term, like if you had it more than 3 months. Covers things like pharmacological management and non-pharmacological management. So pharmacological would be like, taking medications. 6 is getting ready for the exercises. Here they have a warm-up and cool down. They discuss that. 7 is physical exercise performed in rotator cuff injuries. Here they have some stretching and strengthening exercises. 8, rotator cuff tear. They go over tear specifically, and they go over like causes, risk factors, diagnosis, and treatment strategies. And then they kind of go through the problems with the rotator cuff. So you got the tear is 8, 9 is if you strained it, 10 is if you have a rotator cuff tendinopathy, problem with the tendon, 11 is bursitis, and within each individual sections, they cover, causes, risk factors, diagnosis, and treatment strategies. So pretty complete for each problem you can have with your rotator cuff. 12 is alternative therapies, again, other than exercise. Looking at things like acupuncture, Tai Chi, Pilates, that kind of thing. And then 13, the last one is devices used in rotator cuff injuries. Like devices for pain relief and then assistive devices. So yeah, as you can see, if you have a rotator problem, give you a lot of information. I'm glad to see there's a lot of books coming out now on the rotator cuff. It's such a common problem. Like there never used to be that many. There's even some coming out now like for seniors, like just specifically if you're older, like in your 50s and 60s. And I think after you're like 55, the chances of you getting a tear goes way up. So I'm glad to see there's more books coming out on the rotator cuff and specifically for seniors. Real briefly, this book, what exactly is a rotator cuff? Goes over the anatomy, let's say, which I think is a good idea, so you know how things are put together. Exercises mean more if you know how your shoulder is put together, what you're doing the exercises for. Answers you need to know. This book uses kind of a question-answer format. What are the symptoms of a rotator cuff tear? Are there any arm maneuvers that might indicate I have a tear? Where does it tear at? Those are things like, are there different kinds of tears? Here's an interesting one. I have a rotator cuff tear and I'm in a lot of pain. I need surgery, right? Well, not really. Now, this book's totally evidence-based, so they quote all these studies, and that's what the boxes are for. So to answer that question, they look at studies like, say you take a bunch of people with rotator cuff tears, doesn't matter where, what sizes, and then you run like pain scales. How bad are they hurting? And they actually find a lot of times there's no correlation between how bad your tear is or how big the tear is and how much pain you're in. In other words, in these studies, they're actually finding people that have maybe a big tear and no pain. So you can totally have an asymptomatic rotator cuff tear. On the other hand, you also find somebody with a small tear that's in excruciating pain. So just pain isn't really the criteria for having surgery. What will happen if I just leave my rotator cuff tear alone? Well, the only way you know that is if you look at studies where they've taken people that have torn their rotator cuff that don't really do anything about it, and they follow them for 5 or 10 years. And believe me, there are studies like that. And that's the only way you're going to know. Does it get better? Does it get worse? Let's see here. So how does exercise compare to surgery when it comes to treating a rotator cuff tear? That's a biggie. The only way you're going to know that scientifically, you're going to look at the randomized controlled trials. That's the highest form of proof in medicine that a treatment's effective. And you're going to say, hey, that's where they take a bunch of people with rotator cuff tears, let's say partial thickness tears. Half of them you assign to surgery, and the other half you randomly assign to exercise. Then you follow them for 6 months, 1 month, whatever, a year. Some of these studies go on longer than that, like even 10 years. And they say, hey, who does better? The people that had surgery or the people that exercise program. Come to find out, if you look at all of them and put the results together, you're going to end up at the same place. So anyway, to that end, the book ends with an exercise program. Basically has 3 different levels. Has a beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So if like you can barely move your arm, you can start at level 1. If you're not in that much pain or you want to prevent a problem, you go to the last one. So yeah, good book for seniors that torn their tear. Specific injury, I tore my rotator cuff. Good book. If you're looking for a rotator cuff book that discusses a lot of different shoulder rotator cuff problems, this is a great resource. So yeah, definitely check it out.